Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that Naomi struggles with the unbearable weight of responsibility as she tries to protect her younger sister Chelsea from the suffocating shadow of Allison, the obsessive kidnapper whose influence refuses to end even after her capture. The wounds left behind are not only physical but emotional, lingering in the air of their household like a poison neither of them can fully breathe away. Naomi, hardened by years of being the steady pillar for her fragile family, feels as though she is grasping at smoke, unable to shield Chelsea from the torment that Allison continues to inflict, even from behind bars. The menace is not gone, it has only changed shape, and the lines between safety and danger blur as Allison manipulates the system in ways Naomi cannot control. In the silence of her confinement, Allison carves her way toward freedom not with strength, but with a twisted ingenuity born of desperation. She inflicts harm upon herself deliberately, tearing flesh and bone to create wounds convincing enough to demand outside medical attention. It is a grotesque act of self-destruction with purpose, and it works. Guards, doctors, and the system itself bend to the reality of her injuries. She is transferred to the hospital, a space less secure, more penetrable, and filled with new opportunities for Allison to weave her chaos. The investigation that had been steadily building against her halts, delayed by procedure and bureaucracy, leaving Naomi and Chelsea to wait with dread rather than move forward toward closure. When Naomi receives the news, the weight of it nearly crushes her. Delivering the truth to Chelsea and Bill is like opening a wound that had barely begun to scab over. Her voice trembles as she explains Allison's hospital transfer, and though Naomi tries to sound firm, her words betray the same fear that flickers in her eyes. Chelsea reacts explosively, her scream echoing through the house as panic claws at her chest. The trauma she has endured has left her raw, nerves exposed, unable to contain the terror that Allison's name alone ignites. Naomi watches helplessly as her sister spirals, knowing that reassurance is no longer enough. The obsession that binds Allison to Chelsea is not broken by steel bars or medical restraints. It persists in whispers, in memories, in the gnawing sense that Allison is never far enough away. Chelsea cannot escape the feeling of being watched, stalked even from a distance, her mind playing cruel tricks as paranoia takes root. Naomi sees the exhaustion etched into her sister's face, the hollow eyes, the restless nights. Every panic attack is another reminder that their lives are still under siege. Naomi's own heart aches as she witnesses Chelsea unravel, each day pulled further into Allison's psychological grip. She knows Allison has been diagnosed with clear signs of mental instability, but knowing that does nothing to soften the threat. If anything, it makes the danger less predictable, more volatile. Naomi finds herself torn between empathy for the broken mind of their tormentor and the fierce, unyielding urge to shield Chelsea from her destructive reach. It is a torment of its own, forcing Naomi into decisions where no choice feels right. Bill, however, is a man without such conflict. To him, the matter is stark and simple. He cannot abide the suffering of his daughter Chelsea, the fear etched into her every movement. His paternal rage boils over into a determination that borders on ruthless. He vows aloud that no one, least of all Allison, will ever hurt Chelsea again. To him, justice and vengeance have become indistinguishable, and he speaks openly about his belief that Allison deserves no mercy. He frames it as justice, as a rebalancing of scales that have tilted too long in Allison's favor. Naomi, though, recognizes in his voice not justice but the dangerous lure of revenge. Bill's anger deepens as he reflects on how Allison's obsession has disrupted Chelsea's life, stealing from her the simple joys and freedoms of youth. He sees his daughter's spirit dimming, her laughter silenced, her confidence stripped away. For Bill, this loss is intolerable, and it fuels his resolve to act decisively, to end Allison's influence once and for all, regardless of what it takes. His words burn with venom as he tells Naomi that Allison's tricks and manipulations cannot be allowed to shield her from consequences. If that means taking matters into his own hands, so be it. Naomi recoils at his suggestion, her heart clashing violently with his intent. She cannot condone murder, not even against someone as destructive as Allison. Naomi insists that there must be another way, one that does not drag them all into a cycle of violence they may never escape. She fears that if Bill follows through, Chelsea's fragile psyche will be shattered completely. Naomi speaks with passion, reminding Bill that Chelsea already blames herself for being the object of Allison's fixation. To Chelsea, and if she were to discover that Bill killed Allison in her name, she would carry that guilt like a stone tied around her neck for the rest of her life. Her words strike a chord deep within Bill, though his face remains hardened. Naomi's warning reverberates in his mind, the idea that in trying to protect Chelsea, he could ultimately destroy her. For a man used to decisive action, the reminder that sometimes restraint is the greater act of love unsettles him. He begins to consider not only what vengeance would cost Allison, but what it would cost his family. Naomi's clarity forces him to pause, to wrestle with the truth he has long avoided, that his role as a father has been fraught with absence and neglect, and perhaps he is now trying to compensate for years of missed opportunities with a single, reckless act. This realization opens a door to painful self-reflection. Bill has to confront the emptiness left by years where he failed to be present, to protect, to nurture. Now, with Chelsea suffering and Naomi carrying burdens too heavy for one person, he feels the sharp sting of regret. He wonders if his instincts to lash out, to destroy, are not about justice at all, but about easing his own guilt. It is a sobering thought, one that begins to unravel his conviction and force him to look inward rather than outward. Amid these revelations, a question begins to gnaw at Bill's mind. Can he truly rebuild what has been broken in his family? His thoughts wander toward Dani, the woman who once occupied his heart but slipped away, perhaps because he was too consumed with other pursuits to hold on. The memory of her lingers, not in sharp detail but in the ache of absence. He wonders if returning to her could offer a chance at redemption, at finding stability where so much chaos now reigns. Yet even in this, doubt festers. Dani was never one for chains or obligations. She valued freedom, independence. Their connection had always been fragile, more a dance than a bond. And then there was Andre, a figure who hovered around Dani, tied to her by threads of work and casual companionship. Bill questions whether Dani ever truly belonged to him, or if she was always half distant, half entangled in another world. These thoughts swirl within him, mixing regret, longing, and uncertainty. It is not only Allison who has upended their lives, it is the fractures within their family that make them so vulnerable, the cracks that have widened into chasms under the weight of trauma. Naomi sees this too. She knows her father's struggles are not only about rage toward Allison but about the years of distance between them, the broken bonds that now demand repair. She wants to believe that Bill can change, that he can step back from the brink. But doubt remains. Naomi's determination grows in contrast. If Bill falters, if he succumbs to old habits or vengeful impulses, then she must stand firm. She tells herself again and again that she cannot depend on anyone else to save Chelsea. This burden, heavy though it may be, is hers to carry. She refuses to allow her sister's fragile heart to shatter under the weight of someone else's choices. Naomi steels herself to face Allison's madness head-on, to confront the danger without surrendering to it. She knows it will not be easy, that the path forward will be filled with peril, but she clings to the belief that protecting Chelsea means not only shielding her from Allison but also from the consequences of her family's desperation. The household becomes a place of tension and silence, every conversation laced with unspoken fears. Chelsea retreats further into herself, haunted by Allison's lingering presence, while Naomi and Bill circle one another with words sharp as blades. The family teeters on the edge, and the shadow of Allison stretches longer than ever, reaching into every corner of their lives. The threat is not over. If anything, it has only just begun. Naomi spends long nights pacing the narrow hallway outside Chelsea's room, every gasp or cry that might escape from within. Chelsea's nightmares have grown worse since Allison's transfer to the hospital. Sometimes, Chelsea jolts awake drenched in sweat, convinced she can still hear Allison's voice whispering from the dark. Naomi tries to reassure her, but reassurance has lost its potency. The truth is that Naomi herself feels unsettled, Aware that Allison's obsession burns too fiercely to be extinguished by hospital walls or locked doors, Chelsea's fear has begun to manifest in erratic ways. She refuses to leave the house, avoids mirrors as if expecting Allison's reflection to appear in them, and lashes out whenever Naomi tries to coax her into even the smallest step of normalcy. The girl who once radiated a quiet innocence now trembles under invisible weight, and Naomi worries that the trauma is reshaping her permanently. Every time Chelsea cries out that Allison will never let her go, Naomi feels the knife twist deeper. Bill watches from the sidelines, his jaw clenched, his fists curling whenever Chelsea's panic erupts. He is a man of action, and helplessness is a poison to him. He cannot tolerate watching his daughter unravel while he does nothing. His mind circles back again and again to the same conclusion: Allison must be eliminated, not restrained, not treated, but destroyed. Yet Naomi's words still echo inside him, reminding him that vengeance could collapse the very thing he's trying to protect. His frustration builds until it explodes one evening at the kitchen table. Naomi pleads with him to let the authorities handle Allison, to trust in the process, but Bill slams his hand against the wood, rattling the plates. His voice rises, raw with anger, accusing Naomi of being naive, of refusing to do what must be done. For a moment, Chelsea freezes in the doorway, tears streaking down her face as she hears the clash between father and sister. Naomi notices and lowers her voice immediately, but the damage is done. Chelsea now feels caught in the middle, terrified that her family might break apart while Allison's shadow looms ever larger. Naomi later confronts Bill alone, her voice trembling not with fear but with conviction. She reminds him that Chelsea already blames herself for attracting Allison's obsession. If Bill were to act on his violent urges, Chelsea would carry the guilt forever, believing her existence drove her father to murder. Naomi's words cut through his anger, forcing him to face a truth he cannot deny. Bill turns away, unable to meet his daughter's gaze, and for the first time, he admits silently to himself that he is not just angry at Allison but at his own failures as a father. This moment of clarity sparks a series of restless nights for Bill. He lies awake questioning where he went wrong, how he allowed distance and neglect to hollow out the bonds within his family. He recalls moments with Chelsea when she was younger, times when her laughter filled the house and he believed he still had time to make everything right. But time has run short, and now he stands at a crossroads. In these sleepless hours, Bill's thoughts drift inevitably to Dani. Memories of her feel like fragmenture laughter, the way she challenged him, her refusal to be tied down. He wonders if reaching out to her would offer solace, or if she would push him away again, unwilling to carry his burdens. He suspects her relationship with Andre was never about love but convenience, a shared world of work and fleeting pleasures. Yet the possibility that she might still hold a place for him gnaws at him. Perhaps reconnecting with her could ground him, remind him of what family means before it is too late. While Bill wrestles with his regrets, Naomi finds herself becoming the shield between Chelsea and the storm. She begins researching obsessively, diving into case files, hospital records, and psychological studies in a desperate attempt to understand Allison's behavior. She believes that if she can unravel the twisted logic behind the obsession, she might find a way to weaken Allison's hold over Chelsea. The more she reads, however, the clearer it becomes that Allison's fixation is not rational. It is a sickness that feeds on fear, and the more Chelsea cowers, the stronger Allison's influence becomes. Naomi decides to confront this sickness directly, even if it means stepping into dangerous territory. She reaches out to the hospital, demanding updates on Allison's condition. The reports she receives unsettle her. Allison has been difficult to restrain, unpredictable. Even in her weakened state, she manipulates staff with sudden shifts from vulnerability to rage, creating confusion and chaos around her. Naomi realizes that Allison thrives in disruption, using every crack in the system to her advantage. Meanwhile, Chelsea continues to deteriorate. Her panic attacks leave her gasping for air, her fingernails digging into her arms as if trying to claw her way free of Allison's grip. Naomi holds her through these storms, whispering promises that she will never abandon her, that she will find a way to end this. But inside, Naomi is tormented by doubts. She wonders if she is strong enough to save her sister when even the system seems powerless against Allison. Bill, watching the toll this takes on both his daughters, feels the crushing weight of guilt. One evening, after Chelsea collapses into Naomi's arms in hysterics, Bill retreats to the garage, gripping a bottle of whiskey in one hand and an old photograph of his family in the other. Tears blur his vision as he stares at the smiling faces frozen in time, a stark reminder of everything he has lost. He whispers Danny's name like a prayer, uncertain if reaching out to her would bring healing or only reopen old wounds. Naomi senses the shift in him. She knows her father is teetering between two choices: surrendering to violence or seeking redemption through reconnection. She fears what will happen if he chooses the former, and she fears even more that she may not be able to stop him if his rage resurfaces. Yet she also recognizes a spark of vulnerability in him, something she hasn't seen in years. Perhaps this is his chance to finally acknowledge his failures and start rebuilding, not with vengeance but with honesty. As days pass, the hospital announces that Allison's recovery is progressing faster than expected. The news sends a chill through Naomi. She knows what this means: Allison will soon return to court, and with her return comes renewed danger. Chelsea reacts with renewed panic, screaming that Allison will come for her again, that no walls can contain her. Naomi holds her close, vowing that they will not let fear dictate their lives, but deep down she shares the same unease. Bill, hearing the announcement, clenches his fists once more, the old anger rising like a tide. Yet this time, he stops himself. He remembers Naomi's words, the tears in Chelsea's eyes, the crushing guilt he carries. He knows that killing Allison would not heal his daughter, it would only scar her further. Instead, he begins to consider another path, confronting his failures, not Allison. Perhaps if he can rebuild the broken trust between him and his family, they can face the storm together. Late one night, Bill finally gathers the courage to call Danny. The phone rings, his hand trembling, and when she answers, her voice carries the same blend of warmth and distance he remembers. Their conversation is strained at first, filled with long silences, but as the minutes pass, Bill begins to open up. He speaks not of Allison but of Chelsea, of Naomi, of the family he has failed. Danny listens quietly, her response is careful, measured. She does not promise reconciliation, but she does not shut the door either. For Bill, that sliver of possibility is enough to keep him from drowning. Naomi, unaware of this renewed connection, continues her own battle. She pushes deeper into understanding Allison, piecing together fragments of her past, searching for patterns in her behavior. The more she uncovers, the more she realizes that Allison's obsession is rooted in loneliness and rejection, twisted into something monstrous. Naomi sees the danger clearly. Allison is not only obsessed with Chelsea but also fueled by the belief that she has been wronged, that Chelsea owes her something. This delusion makes her unpredictable, and Naomi knows that confronting it will require strength she has never summoned before. The family stands at the edge of an uncertain future. Chelsea, fragile and terrified, clings to Naomi as her only anchor. Naomi, resolute but exhausted, prepares to face Allison in whatever form the confrontation takes. Bill, torn between rage and redemption, begins to understand that his role is not to destroy but to rebuild, to prove through action that his family still matters to him. And somewhere, beyond the sterile walls of the hospital, Allison waits, her obsession undimmed, her mind spinning with schemes yet to unfold. The battle is far from over, and each of them senses that the true test has yet to come. Naomi steels herself for what lies ahead. Bill searches for strength in reconciliation. Chelsea struggles against the pull of fear, and Allison remains the storm on the horizon, threatening to tear them all apart. The day of Allison's court transfer arrives under a gray sky that feels heavy with foreboding. Naomi wakes before dawn, her body taut with unease, knowing that this is the moment everything has been leading toward. Chelsea barely sleeps at all, her eyes wide and haunted, convinced that Allison will find a way to reach her even from the back of a guarded transport van. Bill brews coffee in silence, the bitterness clinging to the air like a second storm. They eat nothing. Words are sparse. Each of them knows what hangs in the balance, though no one dares to speak it aloud. At the courthouse, security is thick, but Naomi can't shake the feeling that it isn't enough. Allison is led in, shackled, her hospital gown replaced with a plain jumpsuit. Yet even bound, she commands the room. Her eyes sweep the crowd until they lock on Chelsea. A smile creeps across her lips, subtle, predatory, a reminder that her obsession is alive and unbroken. Chelsea grips Naomi's hand so tightly her knuckles widen, and Naomi whispers for her to stay strong, though her own heart is pounding. The hearing begins, but Allison is not there to defend herself. She is there to perform. Her words drip with venom disguised as vulnerability. She speaks of her pain, her loneliness, her need for connection, twisting the narrative into something grotesque yet compelling. She addresses Chelsea directly, breaking decorum, insisting that what they shared was real, that Chelsea cannot deny the bond between them. The judge bangs the gavel, the attorneys protest, but the damage is already done. Chelsea shakes violently, her breaths shallow, her entire body collapsing inward under Allison's gaze. Naomi cannot stand it any longer. She rises, demanding that Allison stop, her voice echoing through the chamber. The room falls into chaos as officers move to restrain Allison, but the outburst has already shifted the atmosphere. For the first time, Naomi speaks openly, declaring that her family will not be broken by Allison's obsession. She turns to Chelsea, gripping her shoulders, telling her that none of this is her fault, that Allison's sickness is her own, not Chelsea's burden to carry. Her words cut through the fog like a blade, reaching her sister in a way no whispered comfort ever has. Chelsea sobs openly, clinging to Naomi, and in that moment, something changes. The power Allison once held begins to crack. But Allison is not finished. She thrashes against her restraints, screaming that Chelsea belongs to her, her voice raw and animalistic. The mask of control shatters, revealing the madness beneath. The courtroom watches in horror as she lunges, restrained only by the chain at her wrists. It takes 4 guards to drag her from the room, her screams echoing long after she disappears behind heavy doors. The sound chills Naomi to her core, but also brings a strange relief. Allison's facade has been stripped away for all to see. Outside, the family regroups. Chelsea is trembling but no longer silent. For the first time, she whispers that she wants to try, that she is ready to fight against the fear. Naomi holds her tightly, promising to stand beside her every step of the way. Bill, standing slightly apart, watches with tears in his eyes. He knows he cannot erase the past, but he can choose his future. For once, instead of vowing violence, he vows to be present, to be the father Chelsea and Naomi need, not the avenger he thought they wanted. That night, they return home to a house still carrying the echoes of fear, but now lit by a fragile spark of hope. Naomi tucks Chelsea into bed, staying beside her until her breathing steadies. She steps into the hallway where Bill waits, uncertain, his face lined with regret. Naomi doesn't offer forgiveness, not yet, but she offers him a chance, the chance to prove that he can rebuild what was broken. He nods, accepting silently, understanding that redemption is not won in grand gestures but in the quiet persistence of showing up. News of Allison's outburst spreads quickly. The public, once uncertain, now sees her not as a misunderstood figure but as a dangerous woman consumed by obsession. The case against her strengthens, and Naomi feels for the first time that justice may finally take root. Yet she also knows that Allison will never truly disappear from their lives. Her presence will linger in Chelsea's mind, in the spaces she tried to invade. The scars will remain. But scars are proof of survival, and Naomi believes her sister can one day wear them not as marks of weakness but as emblems of resilience. In the weeks that follow, Chelsea begins therapy, hesitant at first but gradually opening up. Naomi attends every session with her, holding her hand when the memories become too heavy. Bill joins them occasionally, unsure of his place but trying nonetheless. Slowly, the family begins to stitch itself back together, thread by fragile thread. One evening, as Naomi sits on the porch watching the sunset bleed across the horizon, Chelsea joins her. For the first time in months, there is a trace of calm in her eyes. She tells Naomi she still hears Allison sometimes, still feels her shadow, but now she also hears Naomi's voice, steady, strong, unyielding. It is that voice she chooses to follow. Naomi feels tears sting her eyes as she realizes that though the battle is far from over, they are no longer fighting in darkness. Bill steps outside, phone in hand, and quietly mentions that Danny has agreed to meet him. Naomi looks at him carefully, searching for signs of the old impulsive rage, but instead she sees a man humbled, carrying the weight of mistakes yet still willing to try. She nods, giving him silent permission to seek his own healing. The night deepens, the air cool, and for the first time in what feels like forever, the family sits together in fragile peace. Allison's shadow will always loom, but it no longer defines them. What defines them now is the choice they made, to resist hate with love, fear with courage, and despair with the stubborn act of survival. And though Naomi knows the gates of fear may never fully close, she also knows that beyond them lies not only the memory of pain but the promise of a future, one that she, Chelsea, and even Bill will walk toward together, step by fragile step.